everybody. We're back with another episode of the Influencer Marketing Blueprint. Today we have part 2 with Robert Freund. Like I said in my previous intro to Robert Freund's first episode, I never thought legal would be so fun to talk about. It actually was one of our best performing all-time episodes. So that just proved to me that you guys were interested in this stuff. So we had him back on. Since we had him back on, there was a lot of conversation in the Twitter and LinkedIn world around these new FTC guidelines, quote unquote new, putting them in air quotes because there wasn't too many updates, but people became aware of them for the first time. Robert and Taylor and I talk about that at length, talk about how that relates to kinship's process. I mean, we really go into our philosophy on seeding, the breakdowns of that step by step. Are we doing things the right way? All these different things. To be upfront, there's still quite a bit of gray area with these FTC guidelines. So we talk about risk tolerance, talk about the priorities when you're doing your influencer outreach. What do you prioritize? The relationship, disclosures, all these things. We get into customer-generated content, user-generated content. Are brands doing this? Are they legally viable? All these different situations. So we get into all that. Looking forward to you guys jumping in. All right, we're back with another episode of the Influence Marketing Blueprint. Robert, I was a little bit surprised that the advertising attorney was one of our best performing podcasts. So just props to you. I think a lot of people are interested in this topic around FTC rights, usage rights, disclosures, all these different things. And we're so appreciative of Rob's time that we're going to send him some kinship swag. Just make sure to disclose that you got that. Okay.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll do an example of how to disclose or something in a post.
Well, we wanted to get back on the recording, everybody, because in addition to what I just said about it being well received, since that episode went live, I'm putting in air quotes, new FTC guidelines were made aware. Robert, you had a thread that I guess sort of went viral in the D2C Twitter sphere. So we're going to have an open conversation today. It's going to be pretty open-ended, talking a lot about our process at Kinship. Are we legal? Are we all going to jail? All these different things, UGC creators, usage rights, all the above. So Rob, I just wanted to open it up. Maybe you can kind of set the scene on your thread, some of the things that you talked about, I guess the response that you've seen since you've posted that.
Sure. I figure I'll do the lawyer thing first and say what I have to say, that, this is not legal advice. I'm not your guy's lawyer. I'm not the audience's lawyer. I am a lawyer. This is legal information. But if you got questions specific to your situation, you should consult with an attorney. So that out of the way, what happened was the FTC will periodically update some of its guidelines and its rules. And it was time for them to update their endorsement guides document. And what that does is it's not like a set of laws that the FTC or rules that they enforce separately. What it does is it explains certain types of advertising practices specifically related to advertiser and endorser content that the FTC would it gives their take on what's misleading or what violates Section 5 of the FTC Act in that context. So the document contains a series of example hypothetical situations and the FTC's take on those situations. Is a disclosure required? Would you need substantiation? Who's liable? Things like that. And with this update, there's not a whole lot that's new in terms of the FTC's position on anything as they've articulated in enforcement actions and press releases and so on. But they wanted to bring it up to date to reflect what's popular and what's common in marketing and online marketing in particular. So hopefully the public has more clarity on what's okay and what isn't. So part of the response to that thread that I saw was it seemed to take a lot of people by surprise, maybe because they weren't aware that so many of these rules already existed. but it's not like some sea change in terms of, UGC is dead now because everyone has to disclose. Like, all of these disclosure rules were essentially already in effect. The FTC was attempting to provide more clarity on specific situations. In some cases, I'd say they were successful in doing that. And in some that I'm sure we'll talk about, I don't think they were successful. And I think it's a little bit more confusing. So, it's difficult for them to delineate in black and white terms, like this is always okay and this is not okay. And that's why they try to come up with these hypotheticals so that you can predict what's okay and what isn't.
So UGC is not dead. That's what you're here to say.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by that, I guess. But that's like a pretty popular Twitter trope right now. It's like, oh, UGC is over. Well, I don't know why these updates would change that. But I guess it depends on what you mean by UGC is dead.
So it's funny because we have known you for a while now, pretty much the inception of Kinship. You were a part of our course. You've been a fan of us. We've been a fan of you. And even a couple years ago, it was like even less clarity around sending out free product. And like, a lot of our messaging has been, well, I won't tee it up, but you're basically saying like, there's some gray area, but you guys are probably in the clear. Since whether it be credit to Kinship or not, there's been a lot of talk around product seeding, increase product gifting, whatever the terminology you want to use since in the past couple of years. What were the updates around free product? And maybe you can name some of the examples.
Yeah, I think it's probably helpful to set the stage a bit with background on what we're talking about. So as a general proposition, the FTC says that if there's a material connection between an advertiser and an endorser, and that connection is not otherwise obvious to the audience, then that connection needs to be disclosed clearly and conspicuously in any advertising, in any such endorsement. So classic example, you pay an influencer to promote product. They need something like hashtag ad if it's not otherwise unavoidably obvious that connection exists. So a material connection, the FTC says, is one that if a customer knew about it, it would affect the weight or the credibility that they give to that endorsement. Like if someone's talking about how great Nike shoes are, but they got 100 pairs of shoes for free, or they were paid to say that they love Nike so much, maybe that would be something I would want to know and would affect how much weight I give to that endorsement when I make a purchasing decision. And so the FTC's position has always been that receiving free product can be a material connection. What was clear is that if you send someone free product in exchange for a post or a review, that is almost always going to be a connection that requires disclosure. Is a similar situation if you're sending free product and asking for a review. Like you don't have a pre-existing arrangement, but somebody gets a box by surprise or whatever, and it says, hey, we would love if you would post about this, please do it on these platforms, please say X, what have you. That's a situation that the FTC would say requires disclosure. What was not necessarily clear, and what I think still isn't crystal clear, is what happens if there is no relationship between a brand and a creator or influencer or anybody, and they get a product for free, and there is no communicated desire that anything comes of it. You get the product, here, enjoy, the end. If someone then creates content around that and endorses that product, do they have to disclose that they got it for free, even if there's no other consideration in the mix, like just a gift arrives? And the FTC has included some new examples, getting close to answering that, but still not really being clear. So where we essentially land with it, and we can talk about the examples that they give, is it depends, like, which is the classic lawyer answer to like 99% of questions.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned in the beginning, they probably don't want to pigeonhole themselves into saying this is always okay and this is not okay. But the gist of it is you need to consider, who is this creator that you're sending a product to. If they have built their entire following around reviewing a certain type of product, and then one of those products they got for free and they make a YouTube video reviewing it, maybe the audience would want to know that for this particular product, they didn't have to pay for it. Another consideration is like, how valuable is this product that they've received? The example that the FTC gives is like, there's a woodworking influencer and he reviews, all sorts of equipment, and he gets a woodworking lathe. It's such a weird example. Like, I don't know if that's from real life or what. Yeah, I don't know how many lathe reviewers there are, but if you get a really expensive piece of woodworking equipment and then you review it, the FTC says you should disclose that you got it for free because it's, a significant piece of product. It's relevant to your audience, and they probably would want to know that you got it for free if you're going on and talking about it. Alternatively, another example is, if a software developer gave you a 99-cent app for free for you to review it, that probably would not have much effect on the weight the readers give to your review. So the value of the product is one consideration. And also, like, are you giving someone something to review where their audience is built around reviewing that type of product? I've said a lot.
A lot of gray area here.
Today's Power Minute is brought to you by Social Snowball, an affiliate platform for e-com that is focused on enabling affiliate partnerships for what I like to call the modern affiliate. So not the traditional affiliates, publishers, blogs, etc. This is the modern affiliates, such as creators, ambassadors, influencers, customers, etc. So there's many things I love about Social Snowball. One of the first things that comes to mind is they eliminate all code leaks. So if your codes that have gone out to influencers or affiliates have ended up on coupon sites, Social Snowball would eliminate this. Also, it's very important to have a tiered-based system to motivate your affiliates to continue to post and generate revenue for you. So they make that super seamless. Make it super easy on the affiliate to get paid out any which way that they like. So Venmo, PayPal, directly to their bank, on a Visa gift card, Amazon gift card, all that, etc. If you guys haven't checked them out, they're on the Shopify App Store. Go check them out today. You're missing out. They are clearly the best and our number one recommendation for affiliate marketing.
Well, yeah, Rob, I'm curious on this specific question, right? Mm-hmm. Because on seeding, with how we do it, right, we're communicating no strings attached, and we literally have no expectation of you to post, right? And so with that, if we go on and say in that message, and hey, if you are going to post, though, here's what you have to do, X, Y, and Z. If we add that to that initial message, to that outreach message, it's saying we don't have any expectation of you to do this, but we really do. Right. So it kind of negates the entire philosophy. So if we sent out no strings attached, we have no expectation of you to post, right? We're literally saying that, and that's the expectation that's set. If they go ahead and do so on their own free will at that point, let's say, we're going to play it safe on our end. Would we be able to follow up with them after the fact and say, hey, could you post another story and disclose that this was an ad at that point? And would that be sufficient in your mind? Or, how would this play into our process?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give you specific advice to that, so I'll speak in hypothetical terms. But suppose you had a situation where a creator posts an initial piece of content that did not require disclosure because there's no material connection. In that case, that advertiser, that brand, could subsequently reach out and say, we love this piece of content that you created for us, and we'd like for you to make more of it. And at that time, you would be obligated to tell them about, when you post, we require this kind of disclosure. You'd be required to monitor it and so on. But it wouldn't be a situation where if that initial piece of content did require a disclosure, that you could sort of cure it by addressing it in subsequent content, if that makes sense.
I think the gray area, right, is around material connection.
Right.
Like when we were talking previously, it was, does the outreach from a brand to an influencer communicating, hey, Rob, we love you. We'd love to send you this product. No strings attached. Let me know your address. We'll just send it to you. Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Hey, by the way, there's no expectations for you to post whatsoever. that conversation, does that establish a material connection, in your opinion, in that hypothetical scenario?
Yeah, that it goes back to what I was saying. It depends on the product and the influencer. And part of the issue of why it's hard to answer that more directly has to do with the language that the FTC has used in their examples. So they have this example, and I'll just read it because it's short. The example question: I have a YouTube channel that focuses on hunting and camping. Sometimes I'll do a product review. Knife manufacturers know how much I love knives, so they send me knives as free gifts, hoping that I'll review them. I'm under no obligation to talk about any knife, and getting the knives as gifts really doesn't affect my judgment. Do I need to disclose when I'm talking about a knife I got for free? The FTC's answer is, even if you don't think it affects your evaluation, what matters is whether the fact that you got the knife for free might affect how your audience views what you say about it. It doesn't matter that you aren't required to review every knife you receive. Your viewers may assess your review differently. They knew you got the knife for free, so we advise disclosing that fact. So what I wish the FTC had done was be more clear about what they mean by the brand sends you that knife hoping you'll review it. Is that like a privately held hope that's not communicated? Or do they say, hey, we really hope you'll review this, but there's no obligation? They really don't address that situation where, I mean, of course, in most situations where you reach out to someone and then send them a gift, of course, you're hoping
there's secret
to some extent that something will come of it. Like it's not just pure altruism. And it's a different situation from like handing out free samples at a store or something. That is like, obviously there's no real hope there. It's just something that you're doing. But even then, like maybe there is some hope that
there is hope.
Takes it. Yeah, actually, once I started saying it, I was like, no, actually, to some extent, you're always hoping someone's going to go and talk about it. So it's not really clear that what hoping they'll review it means. I think that, my personal take, and I wouldn't say that this is how the FTC would see it, but an undisclosed hope that somebody goes and talks about a product should not be enough to establish a material connection between that brand and that influencer. But they might look at it, and at this point, I'm just sort of speculating is, right, what's the likelihood that they're going to talk about this? If this person's entire audience is built around knife reviews, and he tends to review products that he gets in the mail, and you could be reasonably sure he's going to review this, does that change it? Maybe.
Yeah, and that's something that, go ahead.
I was just to finish the thought. If you took a different situation, and again, this is just my assumption as to what the FTC would think. If somebody receives a low dollar value product, like, I don't know, a couple energy drinks or something, and they're not known for reviewing energy drinks, maybe they're just
a lifestyle
they're
influencer,
a fashion creator or something, and they talk about like, I love these drinks. I think you could make the argument that the audience doesn't care whether they're comped $10 worth of drinks, and it's not what they usually talk about and do in-depth reviews or anything. So if there was no communication from that brand, hey, we'd love if you talk about this, we'd love if you make a post, I think you'd have a good argument that that's not the kind of material, that's not the kind of situation where you have a material connection.
Any questions spark for you there, Taylor?
What I'm hearing, it's not official legal advice, but the way we do seeding isn't defined as a material connection, according to your opinion, in a lot of scenarios here, which is great news and equipping us to put the firing squad on a lot of people on Twitter.
I mean, it's probably case by case. It depends on what you're sending out and how you're doing it. And I haven't looked at any of that, and I don't know. But that I've stated how I think the FTC would interpret. What the examples they've given and different examples.
I think whether you're using kinship or you're doing this, taking this principle of no strings attached internally for you as a brand, I think what you would have to weigh, right, is what Taylor brought up earlier, is as soon as you start introducing But if you do decide to post, please disclose. It kind of negates the whole, we want to establish a relationship with you. So what goes in proper order, right? Like, do you want to be the most 100% surefire, legally safe? Do you want to establish that relationship with that influencer and actually hope to create a material connection later on? Because that is a lot of the hopes, right? In addition to just getting content or getting posts about you, there is the relationship ROI here that does have a long tail effect for many of these brands where you like the product. Maybe you don't decide to post and you come back and say, hey, I would love to work together long term. Does that get ruined by you throwing in that bait and switch? Hey, like, you got to disclose. Wait, I thought this was no strings attached. Those things have to be weighed against each other. Like, if you are actually taking this philosophy of no strings attached and based on giving, not asking, for you guys listening, to this at home, is like, those things have to be weighed against. Because if there is a little bit of gray area, are you comfortable with that to establish the right relationship with the influencer? So moving forward, then there's clear as day, like, you can be legally viable just by, continue to post or get UGC or all these different things. Or if they didn't decide to post, like I just said, now that relationship is strong and established in the right way. Yeah. So let's get into Taylor, do you have a question?
Just a quick question on this. Let's just say, Rob, the audience listens to that and says, yeah, our risk tolerance, is maybe a little higher because we value the relationship that we're looking to build. And let's say they decide for themselves the product that they're seeding and who they're seeding the product to, by our definition here, want to establish a material connection, right? And they send out the no strings attached, we have no expectation of you to post. They send it out, they go ahead and post. Is it a safer play to follow up with them at that point, asking them to disclose it, or is that still invalid and what it makes sense to do? Say they post on their Instagram story, it's not defined as a material connection when we initially seeded them out. That's the interpretation of how we defined it. But is it still, a safer play to follow up with that person after they post on their story and say, hey, would you be willing to post another story releasing this disclosure to the audience? Would that make sense to do or not really?
But they probably have to take it down and repost because it's just that initial post is negated.
Right. It's not like a subsequent post with a disclosure makes the initial one better in some way. It's hard to quantify how much a certain act would help in the event of some kind of regulatory attention. But, generally speaking, if you see a non-compliant post and you take quick action to correct it, whether that's taking it down or including a disclosure or something like that, that's a better look from the FTC's perspective. They also say, they want brands to train and monitor all of their influencers. So, would they be satisfied if they knew, like, hey, our strategy is to not ask for disclosures, and then when content goes up to try to correct it? That's not necessarily a great look. But ultimately, sort of like what you're getting at is, like with anything that I recommend to clients, like, I can tell you what the rules are and what the risks are, and whether to take on risk is ultimately a business decision that's up to each client. The safest thing is always to, ask for disclosure and for the influencers to do that. If you want to, some clients will say, I cannot sleep at night if I think that I'm doing anything that's potentially risky from a regulatory perspective. And others say, this is so valuable to us that we're okay with taking that risk. We understand what the potential downside is, and that's their decision to make. So, it just sort of depends on what you're willing to accept and what you aren't. And I try to help guide people towards starting with what I think the FTC would say the answer is, and then getting the client to a place that aligns with their risk tolerance.
Today's Power Minute is brought to you by MightyScout, an influencer tracking tool. So you've probably heard Taylor and I talk about MightyScout at length in past episodes, but today we want to take special time to speak to it specifically. So if you are investing in any sort of influencer marketing to a degree, I highly suggest getting on MightyScout. First of all, it's going to track all of your organic posting that goes out. So if you're doing seeding, pay for posts, you can drop in all your influencers by campaign. And then once those influencers are in those campaigns, they're going to immediately start being tracked if and when they mention you by handle or any hashtags that you give it. So it's going to give and pull all that content, most importantly, so that you can know who posted, you can reach out for content rights, etc. But also, it's going to give you all the reporting and ROI on those things as far as metrics wise. So you're going to be able to know the vanity metrics that go out around those influencer posts. You're going to know everything that it goes into around influencer marketing in regards to MightyScout. So if you haven't checked them out, highly suggest them. Go to MightyScout.com to find out more. Let's get into, so there's a lot of social listening tools. There's one that's one of the sponsors of this podcast, MightyScout. Big fans of them, how they social listening. In addition to influencer content, but also could be customer content, UGC that they're tagged in. There's another one called Archive out there. This is related to UGC and going to UGC creators for ads. What is the FTC's view on that? Because we even got in a conversation right before we recorded where you were just saying there is no definition around an influencer. Someone with zero social media following could post something online. They still have to disclose. So that obviously goes into customer generated content, which is kind of a new term, and UGC user generated content, which is more often, well, now it always was encompasses customers, but now it's kind of like this own pool of people that have built a business off of doing this full time.
Yeah. From a legal perspective, there's no difference between an influencer and anybody else in terms of either complying with the endorsement guides or doing rights clearance, like granting your business the ability to repurpose that content or run ads with it. So to the extent there's some distinction in marketing jargon, there's not really one from the FTC. If I pay somebody with no followers to post about my brand, it's the same rules apply as if I paid somebody with 1 million followers to do it.
What about when it comes to like any sort of customer, to use the legal term, material connection? Hey, Rob, you bought from Nike. Now, like, I see that you actually posted some good content. I'm going to give you a 25% off to give me back some content so I can use in ads most of the time. Or just paying straight a UGC creator $100 for a piece of content.
Yeah.
What is the conversation around those things?
Both of those situations would be pretty clear material connections established. There's an incentive that's been given, whether payment or a discount, both of which the FTC specifically says can constitute a material connection in exchange for an endorsement. So regardless of who the person is, whether they're an existing customer or someone new that you're hoping to attract, though, if you are paying somebody either in cash or in the form of a discount or some benefit like a sweepstakes entry or tickets to some event or something like that, you have established a material connection at that point if that offer is an exchange for content.
I have a quick follow-up question on that. So in the video content, because just say for customer generated content or the UGC content where they're working with that individual to give a video, asset back to us to then use in ads, not even for them to post on the organic side of things. So just to delineate the two, they're not posting on organic. And it's just going to be used for ads. In this scenario, do they need to say in the video, this happened, disclosing the material connection, so on and so forth, or can that be revealed in the ad copy? Like, how does that need to be revealed to the audience? And does it need to be? And is there a delineation between organic posting of that asset and what needs to be done on the actual advertisement and paid social?
Right. It depends a bit on how you are using the content. If you are running an ad on your brand's page, then one of the FTC's concerns is that, like at a very high level, is people need to understand when they're being advertised to, and that's why we have these disclosure rules. If an ad is running under a brand's page, but it features like a UGC style video, the audience is still going to understand that this is advertising. It's on the brand's page, so
it wouldn't need to be there.
Right. You wouldn't need hashtag ad in that situation if I'm served like an Instagram ad on a story or something and it's under the brand's page.
obviously an ad.
Yes. The fact that it says sponsored isn't really what determines that, more so than what account it's being displayed from. So if I see a video on Nike's page, I know that is commercial content that Nike has produced. I'm being advertised to. But if it's on the creator's account, the FTC says you can't just rely, or you shouldn't rely solely on those platform tools. Like Instagram's, it has the promoted or the sponsored thing. Other platforms have similar ones. It's frustrating, but the FTC says, that might not be enough. You should probably be safe and include hashtag ad or something.
So for whitelisting examples.
Yeah, right.
What about so I mentioned social listening at the beginning of this topic, repurpose, seeding content for us, or customer generated content, user generated content. Of course, you got to get rights to that. That's kind of like the no-brainer we talked about in the previous recording or episode with you. So if you go back, you could hear a lot about Rob's advice on usage rights. Get usage rights, then repurpose. Same sort of thing applies where it's under the brand account. People know that's advertising.
Yeah, it depends on how you're repurposing it.
But the minute we run it from a whitelisted account or Spark ads, you'd recommend putting hashtag ad in it or something along those lines to disclose that information.
Yeah, if it looks like I'm seeing a post that's from a creator account, then I should know that there's a connection to the brand that they're talking about.
Awesome.
Anything else out of the new guidelines as we kind of wrap up here that was interesting to you, or just, you already mentioned it yourself. Like, I think your thread made people aware of the FTC for the first time. So again, go back and listen to our first recording with Rob. That was super insightful. But anything else out of the air quote new guidelines that stood out to you?
There are a few interesting things, but off the top of my head, one is they expanded the definition of what an endorser is to include virtual or AI influencers. So
interesting.
If you have content that features someone who's not a real human, but otherwise, it's posted on that thing's account, you still need these disclosures because, well, that's what the FTC has said. So you can't sort of like get away with it by using an AI influencer. What else was I going to say?
What a weird world we're about to be entering into.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
There are some issues about like customer reviews. They got more particular about what clear and conspicuous means. They've reiterated that the disclosure basically has to be unavoidable. And in particular, they specify that the format of the content dictates the type of disclosure you need. So for videos, if there's an audio component, the disclosure has to be read aloud. If it's just an image, you need it in text. If it's a video, particularly in TikTok, they were talking about, it's not enough to have a disclosure in the caption. It needs to be like visually overlaid in the video itself. So they say if you got an audio and a visual component, you need both the text and the audio disclosure, which is a bit more clarifies that there's more of a burden than you could have otherwise interpreted it. Like it wasn't clear before that you need an audio disclosure in a video piece of content in addition to the text. And now that's what they're saying.
I have one last question in a scenario, Rob, for you. I oversee the client service side of things, so it's very valuable to hear your insights. If we have a client that has very low risk tolerance in the way that they're doing things, for example, and we had already referenced that these updates really aren't all that new. Over the last year, we were working with M&M's, whose risk tolerance as a household name brand was quite low. And we were already saying through the seeding card, so our outreach message remained the same. No strings attached, no expectation you to post. We just want to send you product to establish a relationship. In the product that we actually sent out to the influencer, though, in tandem with the product was a seeding card that laid out kind of the training and, here's what you should do if you ultimately end up posting. But it was detached from the communication where we just felt like it was a little bit of a nice break to still establish that relationship in a genuine way, And then on the seeding card, it had all of that. For a brand that has low risk tolerance, is that sufficient? When the product is sent and they receive it, there's a card that lays out, X, Y, and Z about disclosures and how to go about, an endorsement if they choose to do so.
Right. So the FTC doesn't break down like
how
the like physically how the expectations about disclosure and training materials and so forth are packaged. So it's not the case that, well, it needs to be on the exact same page as any other communication. It's just if you're engaging in this kind of a relationship, you need to provide it. So my quick take is like, if I'm opening a package and there's one piece of paper that has, hey, if you post, here's what we need you to do, and we're going to be monitoring it, and it's not on the same piece of paper or card as like the other, we're excited to send this to you or whatever information. It's not like that physical separation matters. What probably wouldn't be okay is like if you put all those terms about, or all that information about disclosure in like size 4 fonts. That's like really hard to read or contrasting. They'd probably say that's not okay. But like if it's part of the same package, or if you send it in 2 deliveries or something, that probably wouldn't be all right. But
there's a slight delay.
Yeah,
it's in Mandarin, actually. They need to be able to interpret it.
If it's in the same package and it's not something they're going to miss when they open it and go through this stuff, then that's probably sufficient.
A good option for
providing it includes everything it needs to say.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Any other last minute comments, questions, concerns?
No, Rob, super helpful, man. Appreciate you.
To be clear, we don't have a material connection with Rob.
That's right.
But we appreciate your time. And if you aren't following Rob Freund on Twitter, go do so now. A lot of content around this, of course, living and breathing this stuff every day. So give him a follow, and appreciate the time, my man.
Yeah, likewise. Always fun to chat with you.
All right, that's all for today. If you'd like some help developing your influence marketing campaign, go ahead and DM us on Twitter. Links are in the description. Or you can head to kinship.co to learn more, and you can book a call there. That's KYNSHIP.co. At kinship.co, you also find tools, templates, and resources, all designed to help you grow an influencer campaign that drives visibility and sales, not just likes. Thanks for tuning in, as always, and we'll see you next week.